The meeting between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin at an American military base in Anchorage, Alaska, ended with no apparent resolution to the war in Ukraine.
Overseas now to Ukraine, marking its Independence Day with drone strikes deep inside.
On August 19, 2025, Donald Trump met with Vladimir Putin in Alaska. After the meeting, Trump said it went well. He even said there was warmth between them. Many saw this as a positive step. Some leaders even thanked Trump for helping start the process. But then came August 24, Ukraine's Independence Day. Russia launched new missile strikes across Ukraine, including on a university and a Jewish cemetery in Sumy. And this attack made it clear, whatever was said behind closed doors, the war didn't pause. So, what was actually discussed during that meeting? Did Trump really ask Putin to stop the war? Or did something else happen, something we weren't told? In this video, we'll reveal what really happened behind closed doors. And trust me, the truth behind this meeting will surprise you. To understand the full story, we need to go back to the day Trump met Putin in Alaska. This wasn't just a friendly handshake between two world leaders. It was the first major one-on-one meeting between the two since the Ukraine war began. And it wasn't held in Washington or Geneva. It was held on the U.S. soil, at a military base in Anchorage. Trump wanted control of the setting. But once Putin landed, the tone didn't feel cold at all. The two arrived together in the same armored car. Cameras captured Trump smiling, clapping, even walking beside Putin like an old ally. That image stuck with people. Inside the meeting, things moved quickly. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff later said the Russians made early concessions. We still don't know what those concessions were, but they were enough for Trump to stay longer than expected and push for something bigger, a full peace deal. Witkoff said Trump believed they had agreed on the early building blocks of that deal. Trump himself said he felt warmth from Putin. Then came the line that caught everyone's attention. I think he wants to make a deal. The Alaska meeting ended with smiles and talk of progress. But within days, things quietly shifted. Suddenly, Ukraine was being shown maps. Behind closed doors, talk of territorial compromise began. This didn't come out of nowhere. It was part of a larger push, one that started the moment Trump walked out of that meeting. Multiple reports confirmed that during his White House meetings with Zelensky and European leaders, Trump's team presented maps showing Russian-occupied Ukrainian regions, some marked as disputed, others shaded as potential areas of concession. The message was clear. If peace talks were going to happen, Ukraine would have to give something up, and the only thing being discussed was land. According to insiders, these maps included parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, and even areas near Crimea, regions where the war has been most brutal. Zelensky was said to be visibly tense when shown these outlines. He didn't agree, he didn't commit, but the pressure was clear. At the same time, US and European officials started floating new terms like pragmatic peace and lasting stability. These words sound harmless, but they're often used to soften the idea of Ukraine giving up territory in exchange for a ceasefire. European leaders publicly avoided the topic, but privately, they knew the direction this was going. One diplomat told CNN, if the US pushes Ukraine too hard, it'll break the whole process. Meanwhile, Zelensky stayed firm. His public stance didn't change. No land, no compromise, and no surrender. But behind the scenes, the pressure was building, and one of the first signs was Trump changing his stance on the ceasefire. In the weeks before Alaska, Trump had been consistent in his messaging. He said the war had to pause before any serious peace talks could happen. In his own words, I want a ceasefire. He repeated that line in multiple interviews and campaign stops. Even during private calls with European leaders, he positioned the ceasefire as a condition. But after the Alaska meeting with Putin, his message changed. He no longer talked about stopping the war first. Instead, he said peace negotiations could begin without a ceasefire. In an interview, he said, "You can have a deal without a ceasefire." That was the first time he stepped away from what European leaders and Ukraine had been demanding. Around the same time, U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff said their goal was to skip short-term steps and go straight into deeper negotiations. European leaders pushed back. In a joint meeting, several of them told Trump that without a ceasefire, there could be no credibility in any talks. They argued that if missiles are still hitting civilian areas, Ukraine would have no reason to trust any agreement. Zelensky also repeated his position. His team said they won't sit down with Putin while the war continues. Trump didn't reject that publicly, but he stopped repeating the word ceasefire and introduced something new: security guarantees. After the Alaska meeting, Trump's team stopped talking about Ukraine joining NATO. They offered something else: a new deal that would give Ukraine protection without making them a NATO member. Trump believed NATO was too risky. He'd said for years that getting Ukraine in would drag the US into direct war with Russia. So his team started shaping what they called A parallel agreement. Marco Rubio was tasked with leading a working group. They reached out to Poland, France, Germany, and the UK, trying to form a small circle of countries that would step in if Ukraine was attacked again. But the draft deal Ukraine received was never designed as a treaty. There was no ratification in the US Congress, no sign-off from European parliaments, and no direct military back. Instead, it was a joint statement, mostly political, pushed through a working group led by Marco Rubio. The US offered promises, continued financial aid, faster weapons transfers, intelligence sharing, and support for military training. But when Zelensky's team asked the key question, what happens if Russia attacks again? There was no specific response plan. The draft used phrases like timely coordination and collective response, but those held no weight without enforcement. European leaders saw the same problem. Officials in France and Germany said the plan looked like a lighter version of NATO. It gave Ukraine promises on paper, but not the real protection needed to stop Russia. And while this proposal was being circulated, Russia stayed silent. That silence didn't last long. On August 24th, Ukraine's Independence Day, Russia launched a heavy drone attack across several cities. Shahed drones were used again, the same ones Iran supplied earlier in the war. Kyiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, and Dnipro were all targeted. Ukraine's air defenses shot down most of them, but some hits on the target. One strike hit a residential area near Odessa. Another wave went after energy infrastructure. In total, at least 3 people were killed and 18 others injured across different regions, including Donetsk, Kharkiv, Kherson, and Sumy. And this wasn't just another random strike. It came right after Trump's meeting with Putin in Alaska. It came right after the new security deal was handed to Ukraine. And it came on a date that carries real weight: Ukraine's Independence Day. Putin had made it clear from the beginning of the war, back in 2022, he doesn't see Ukraine as fully independent. He called it a puppet state. He said Ukrainian identity was a Western project, and he openly questioned the right of Ukraine to exist within its current borders. This new round of attacks showed that nothing had changed in Moscow's thinking. While the US was offering draft deals and Europe was talking about timelines, Russia kept pushing the same message. This war will continue until Ukraine gives up territory, NATO ambitions, and full control over its future. And this attack raised a serious question. Why hasn't Trump said anything? He met with Putin just 5 days earlier, and then stayed completely silent when Russia attacked again. Even after confirmed reports of civilian damage, there was nothing. Some experts said the US is now thinking more about long-term stability at home than total involvement abroad. Former US officials and policy analysts have said the same thing. Washington is now focused on its own long-term stability. And one diplomat said it directly. The US doesn't want another Afghanistan. And when you connect all of this to Alaska, it gets darker. Trump may have promised Russia that the US won't step in. We don't know for sure. But this silence, right after a deadly attack, reveals everything. What do you think really happened behind closed doors? Do you think Trump made a quiet deal with Russia? Share your thoughts below. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.